this doesn't have formaldehyde, which is nice. Used to have.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
We're ready. Yeah. Are we ready?
Yep.
Simonetta, is Karen ready too? It's Karen online?
Yes.
Yes?
And,
Oh,
the
I can
camera
watch
itself.
here. Very good. Just come in. Right through. Roller skate. Thank you. Pick up a chair. Yeah. Yeah. Very good, very good, very good. All right, are we live?
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome to White Box at 9B9, a kind of a new home for White Box 2B and 2C, phenomenal music organization honoring Ken Croken. And then we also have a collaborator, Blueprint for Accountability, AKA used to be the Culture Project, one of those most political theaters in the city of New York. We did Guantanamo. So our program coming up for the next 11 years, believe it or not, inside here in a 1,000 square feet backyard where Jody Lynn is going to be performing tonight. Yep, is going to include, interactions with real music, sound art, theater, etc. This summer we will have a women's theater, 25th anniversary. Alan Bookman is putting together for us, right? And what should I say? This exhibition of the cloth was an idea I had some years ago, and finally I began to weave it and weft it together somehow, right? And I thought, I have a mother, sisters, and everybody who used to actually be seamstresses and weavers and so forth, yeah? So this is a way for me to honor all the women I've known in my life that, gave us everything we had, plus the clothing, plus the beautiful tapestries, plus so much, right? And thinking of that, when Trump took over some years ago, 5 years ago, I began, and I saw the rhetoric of anti-immigration, et cetera, when the Republicans had been pro-immigration, especially in California, in New Mexico, and every place where you have to pick up grapes and strawberries and so forth, then it bothered me. So I began a series called Exodus, and we began to celebrate immigrants and expats from around the world that we almost had done. Yeah. So putting all that together, the only twist of the cloth is that it begins 2 years of feminist curatorials. Yeah. And I'm sorry, my name is with Karen Cordero, who's the actual real curator. I'm just the humble guy who came up with the title, and I'm helping Karen. And I really love Karen Cordero Ryman. I've known about her for many years in a quiet way, and finally Johanna Roa in Mexico City introduced me to her, and she was generous enough to curate this exhibition. Yeah? I'm only going to say that Of the Cloth inaugurates the downtown location of White Box, where we decided not to go to Tribeca, not to go back to Chelsea, not to go back to Orchard Street and so forth, because we like to go and work with community. Here, Latinx, Asian, below Houston, Delancey, all the kids go to school together, the parents never meet each other. So we're going to have a lot of workshops. Johanna Roy is going to begin a series of workshops, very Latin American induced, and some of them with native peoples in Colombia, Mexico. We'll move down to Ecuador and so forth. And this is the right neighborhood. This is where I came back. I came here in '73 when I was a draft evader from the lovely man called Francisco Franco Generalissimo. And I'm stuck in the same damn neighborhood where I may die, And so I decided to roll this place with chipboard, which is a recycled material, right? This is what they used to throw away or burn it in furnaces. So I decided that this is so much cooler, nicer, inviting. The sound is just beautiful for all the music we're going to be having in sound art and voices for the theater and so forth, right? So this is unlike a cube. This is White Box. It's the uncube, right? And I have complaints, so we put up some pieces of wall for the ones who need white. Simonetta, Shiva, out there in Papua New Guinea or Paris, wherever she may be, right? They're like, white! So they got it. $440 of two pieces of Gatorade, Gator board, Gator board, Gatorade, right? Used to be like $30. So with COVID and so forth means everybody's got so much money today that we're paying through our teeth for everything we do, right? Except for ourselves, the artists and so forth. Yeah. But anyhow, so this exhibition, as I said, is part of the White Boxes and Going series Exodus, highlighting the work of emigre artists and working in New York City. And in a moment, I'm going to pass the mic from Mexico City to Karen Cordero Ryman, who I see her in this screen. But before that, I would like to give the mic for a couple of minutes to my friend Matt Sullivan, in memoriam of Ken Croquin, his late husband. They ran a 2B and 2C garden around the corner. We're going to kick it in back again with Blanca de la Torre creating a green box for white box in the backyard. We have 1,000 square feet. We're going to win another competition of the best environmental urban garden for the community in the city. So Matt Sullivan, and then we'll move on to Karen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. People ask me about the name 2B and 2C. Well, our garden, I live right around the corner. I came down here in 1991, very different neighborhood in those days. And we took over a garden that an older woman was running, and we helped her with it, and she turned it over to us. So it's on 2nd Street between B and C, hence 2B and 2C. And Ken died from cancer acquired at Ground Zero, where he was a teacher, and a dedicated teacher, where he started an art program. And we started a literacy program right here on our street. So I'm going to play for you a performance piece that we often did while he painted live. And we called it Multiple Oneness. And this jacket, thank you, B. This jacket, who some of you can see, and I'm going to bring it around a little bit. Ken painted for me when I had my 50th birthday concert long ago, and it got broadcast on NPR live. So
Hi, nice to see you.
hello. Oh, okay.
Are we beginning?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Johanna, do you know if we are now beginning?
We're going to play a 2-minute song.
Yeah. So I'm going to play Multiple Oneness for you.
Let us know when we're going on the air.
Karen, we are ready.
Is Juan going to say something?
Are you gonna say something?
Or you want me to start?
Go ahead and start, Karen.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, or good morning, or from wherever you are. I'm Karen Cordero, and together with Juan Puntes, I co-curated this exhibition, Off the Cloth, which is being inaugurated today and also inaugurates the new downtown location of White Box. So we're very excited about this. The show represents an intergenerational dialogue between 13 women artists whose creative production refers to their transcultural heritage through the use of or reference or allusion to textiles. The artists are Blanca Amezcua, Shivalin Burgos, Christine Davis, Isolda Kile, Sandra Yula Lee, Jody Lin Ki Chao, Simonetta Moro, Kinsa Nam, Aurora Pelizzi, Eva Petrick, Johanna Embroa, Amanda Valdez, and Lilia Siamu. And we're really delighted and honored that they have all accepted to participate in this inaugural event. The selection for the exhibit highlights the diversity of the participants' cultural and ethnic backgrounds and engages in and broadens the timeless dialogue between craft and art. Women's artistic deployment of skills such as sewing, knitting, and weaving that are traditionally relegated to the status of domestic craft and separated from high art here are celebrated and embraced without condition. The goal of the exhibit is to establish a sense of communion between the artist's practice and the audience's sense of identity as a consequence of shared cultural, gender-bound, or social experiences. Both the artistic production of the past century and the art historical reflections based on gender studies have spawned a variety of initiatives that highlight and revalue the role of textiles in artistic creation, as perhaps many of you have noticed seeing the exhibits that are currently being shown, as well as reflections on the ways in which these media contribute distinctive work processes and modes of signification to the discipline of art. The time-based and corporeal processes related to these modes of production are key elements that establish links with historical and cultural antecedents, and they also produce transformations in the realm of affect and meaning that suggest distinct modes of social coexistence and interaction. And in addition, these aesthetic actions frequently break with conventional horizons of expectation regarding issues such as the hierarchical relationship between art and craft, the uses and/or combinations of artistic media and artistic genres, and habitual markers for gender, class, and ethnicity, as well as models of political art. Together and in dialogue with one another, the work of the 13 artists in this exhibition demonstrates the vitality and the visual and conceptual richness of current creative production takes up textile as medium and metaphor. Their pieces generate a multisensory textuality that allows us to link various levels of experience and through manual and technological processes that refer insistently to the body, introduces a critical perspective that allows us to imagine new modes and models of interrelation with ourselves, with one another, and with our environment. So we're delighted for the opening of this exhibit to be able to have this roundtable discussion between three of the artists who are participating in this exhibit, Christine Davis, Simonetta Moro, and Johanna Roa. And we've asked them to talk a little about their work and address freely, of course, in the manner that they see most fit, a couple of topics. One is, what is the importance of an exhibit like Off the Cloth in a local and global context and how does it relate to other contemporary initiatives? And also, how does their work address issues of intercultural dialogue, precisely textiles as medium and metaphor in the context of interdisciplinary production, and the migration of people, ideas, and artworks. So I'd like to invite each of these artists to speak a little to us about this aspect. And for those who are joining us online, they'll be both showing some images of their work both in the gallery space and virtually through some other medium, through PowerPoints and some other vehicles. And I'd like to first welcome Christine Davis, who is heroically joining us online. She's recovering from COVID, and we really appreciate that she has, in this situation, has been able to join us today to talk about her work. I'll present her briefly. The work of Christine Davis investigates language, time, and wonder, encompassing a wide variety of techniques: photography, slide projection, sculpture, installation, and collage. Her work is well represented in public collections, particularly in her native Canada, and she has exhibited widely and regularly since 1987. She was born in Vancouver, and she has been at home in 6 cities on 3 continents and currently lives and works in Toronto and in New York. She also roams with ease through the worlds of philosophy, literature, and history, as well as the broad fields of scientific investigation and material culture. Animated by what she has called a cosmological impulse, she proposes new forms of knowledge that are not created according to a system, but rather emerge from a process of metamorphosis and transformation. She characterizes her work as machines for thinking, and it is conceived to eventually escape the apparatus of artistic control. She has a BFA from York University in Toronto. She also studied philosophy in Paris. She served on the board of directors of the Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery and the YYZ Artist Outlet in Toronto. And she co-founded both Borderlines magazine and the interdisciplinary journal Public Art, Culture, and Ideas. And in 2014, she joined CYBER, the Center for Integrative Bioengineering Research at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. So it's really a pleasure to meet you, Christine, in this technological based interchange. I'm in Mexico City. I think I didn't mention that. And well, you're there in New York. So please tell us a little bit about your work and your thoughts about the topics that this exhibit addressed.
Well, first of all, congratulations to the opening of White Box, which is a block and a half from my house. So it's very, I was able to pass that out the front door to Alejandro. We were both masked, and he carried the piece across the street. So, okay, I come from a family of scientists, and I've lived, I think I went to probably 15 different schools on different places before I went to university. And I didn't follow that route of science. And this piece, ACGT, was done in 1995, and it was the time when the human genome was being sequenced, and there was so much hoopla around the fact that they could code this, right? The code of life. And my brother is actually a molecular biologist, so I believe very much when you're thinking and working with science, which I do, it's not just the discipline, it's the whole apparatus. It's where it's practiced. It's how it's taught, how it's received. It's the whole culture around it that matters a lot to me. So I went to his lab and I looked through the microscope, and it was all like threads, all threaded together. And my immediate impulse is like, we are all textile. We are textile. Like, I think the universe is textile. I think we are networked, and it's just these nodes of connectivity. But what was the most alarming about the way that the sort of sequencing of the human code was being presented was that it was divorced from any other thinking of of culture, gender, race, history, geography. It was just this total reduction of the human to a series of letters in a string of code, and it's a shift from very much a 19th century understanding of the body as a mechanical model where you have a pump and pistons and things are moving through like that, to something to be read, to be deciphered, that was information that needed to be somehow that was sort of like external to us, right? And that none of the other factors that are involved in biology were being considered, right? And I think that biology is the life sciences should be connected to all areas of life. So what I chose to work with was this one sequence, ACGT, and of course I can't remember the names of the nucleotides right now, adenine, guanine, thymine, and there's another one. So that sequence that I chose to work with is called a homeobox sequence, and it belongs to many forms of life. It's in a fruit fly, which is what my brother was studying, and it's part of the sequence which tells other parts to turn off and on, of course, and then whether these turn off and on, and this could be cancer or various kinds of things, it really does depend upon environment, history, all sorts of other factors. So you can't reduce life to, a string of letters. So I sewed up the entire homeobox sequence into a grid. Of course, if you take something that's a narrative like this and you make it so complex into a grid so it can be read diagonally, horizontally, vertically, it can no longer occupy this sort of reductive position that information has. And historically, this was an interesting time too, because there was a lot of influx into biology from people it was post Cold War, so people who were who were code crackers. So once again, it's like how the discipline is formed that interests me. And then something I also have to say is, like, I had just had a child. He was 3 months old, and I had the worst insomnia, and he woke up every hour. So if you notice, the letters are the side of child's wooden building blocks. And so this is what I did, is I kind of sewed my way through it. It took me about 2 years to sew up that whole sequence. So there is a sort of like life element to it as well. Plus noticing things about what is biology, what is a boy, like why does he want the truck, why is it like, it's like the look on his face when the thing was rolled in, and you get really, really deep into nature versus nurture, and how complex it is, right, to weave both difference and interconnectivity, I guess, is what the work was addressing. And it's the size of armor. I was looking through the Met and looking at armor from different cultures, and it was basically around 13th, 14th century, which was maybe like 3/4 to 7/8 what the size of armor would be today, because we've grown, right? In some places in the world, people have gotten in terms of the armor. Like if you look at the difference between a spacesuit, I was thinking that people went to the moon, and then that body armor was much, much smaller. So I guess my impulse was to take this secret thing that was supposed to be hidden, this information locked inside of us, and put it to the exterior, right? And try to think about what binds and what connects flow of information and intercultural dialogue, intergenerational dialogue. I was really interested in that too, because I just had a small child. So, and I think of textile as being, it's like consciousness. It's part of, it's about how things are connected and adapted, and can be, it can be architecture, it can be clothing, it can be communication. So for me, textile is a very important reference. And it is traditionally, in terms of the hand, it is linked to women's work. And the repetitive time-based element and the investment in that really interested me a lot with this piece. And this piece was part of this thing called Paradise Now, which was trying to respond to the mapping of the Human Genome Code. So it comes out of a particular moment in history as well, when this was going to solve everything, the fact that we could map the code. So that's all I have to say about that. I really don't feel, I need to see the exhibition. I mean, I love it. I think it's a wonderful idea, but I don't want to sum up why I think this is relevant, except that we should be except that I love shows like this, right? Which themselves are woven of all of these different people coming from different areas. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you so much, Christina. Everything you mentioned is fascinating. I'm writing down all these things that you've
There's a bird on my head. I just noticed. I've got a bird in the background.
And I was fascinated by both, you know, your mention of the kind of trying to pull science out of this kind of reductive way of thinking, and how this interrelated with your personal life, with motherhood, and the relation you mentioned between nature and nurturing, and also the way you were trying to kind of make visible something which is invisible.
Yeah.
And that relationship to armor that you mentioned, I think is fascinating. I mean, the piece is just. I'm also seeing it from only a virtual standpoint, but it's just beautiful, and it fits in perfectly with so many of the themes of this exhibit. So I'm going to introduce now Johanna, and then following her Simonetta, and hopefully once we finish, we'll be able to enter into a dialogue both between the three of you and the public regarding all these aspects, and then of course enjoy the show and the performances that will accompany it. So Johanna Roa is a transdisciplinary artist and a Colombian US art historian who lives between New York and Mexico City. She has a degree in fine arts from the Institute of Fine Arts in Cali, Colombia, and completed an MA in visual arts at the National University in Mexico. She also is currently a candidate for a PhD in history and critical theory of art at the Universidad Iberoamericana in Mexico City, and is pursuing an MA in women's and gender studies at the CUNY Graduate Center in New York. Her artistic practice focuses on the uses of memory, the archive, and the historical materiality of objects through two-dimensional and three-dimensional works, installations, and process-based and social practice pieces. Johanna has had artistic residencies in New York and Mexico City, and numerous solo and group shows in Mexico, the United States, Colombia, Germany, and Cuba, among others. And she's also been a key factor in both the conceptual and the very nitty-gritty aspects of production of this exhibit, as Juan can also testify. Johanna, welcome, and please share with us some of your thoughts about your work and its relation to this exhibition.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Well, I'm really happy to be here today. I'm proud to be involved in this feminist program of White Box. And I'm happy too, because this is an amazing non-white space. And, you know, it was a dreaming that, you know, came true. That's great. And it's been quite interesting to be involved with the other artists for participating in the exhibition. And on that way, I would like to abroad the first question of Karen and Juan about the relationship with the exhibition and the local and global context. And I believe that is quite important. I'm a feminist. And on that way, I believe that is directly connected how the daily space are changing or are pushing the global issues. And in this exhibition, we have, for example, pieces as Kinsa. Kinsa is talking about the political troubles in her country. And we have other pieces that are more aesthetic. And on that way, I believe that we can understand that daily life aesthetic are directly connected with a political situation. They are never being disconnected. In my personal case, I'm trying to climb the knowledge produced by women during the history. In a certain point of my life, I realized, for example, that my grandmother during her life developed techniques, knowledge that never had been included in process as art history. Then in my piece, for example, I met a Mexican woman who created a recipe, and she told me how prepare it. And I believe that it's a heritage that I need to, catch it to spread that information and that knowledge. The only important issue in this exhibition is the third question of Karen and Juan. It's about the importance of this exhibition, and I believe the importance of a white box in the local context. And I'm sure that we need a fresh view of the production of women. And I believe that it could be connected with the neighborhood. We are trying to climb too and to reveal how other communities, people who come from different countries, different cultures, have been built, this city. It's not just one way to write history. We need to find the different lines that allow you, to understand how a complex place as New York, a complex neighborhood as this one was building, and how the life is living in a quite different ways. And I don't know. On that way, I believe that this exhibition uh, is working, putting on the table an important discussion about women producing knowledge. Well, I'm a feminist, so I hope that it will come soon. Thank you. That's
Okay, Johanna, I don't know if did you want to show which is your piece in the exhibit, some images, or are you fine with this?
excuse me?
Do you want Alejandro to show some images of your piece, or are you fine as it is?
You can turn around, look at the big screen and the two pieces.
This is a video. I met Nurses Carmen, Doña Carmen, a few years ago during art residency in Mexico City. She and her friend, Mrs. Amalia, they created a recipe. And Mrs. Amalia told me that she hasn't money to feed their 11 children. Then she went to the forest to pick up some plants and herbs. And she tasted them, and together they developed a recipe I will cooking for you today in a while. Then I make a video, and she's inviting everybody to create their own recipe using herbs and plants that are not using frequently. On that way, they hadn't talking about the name of the recipe, because Mrs. Amaya said we should name it pizza, and Doña Carmen said, no, pizza, no. What are you saying? No, you need to create a new name in Nahuatl. And they create a complicated word, even for me, that is way Chopin Tlaxcali. It means the big omelette of the green time. Then a few weeks after that, I made this dress. It's similar that Carmen is wearing during the video. And create your thing. And I'm trying to point out how the art history, get away the knowledge produced by women. And I have one piece more that is related. It's a table clock. During this artist resident, I went to a place. They are selling supplies for textile, and I spent time with women talking about whatever you want. And they told me how embroidery, how to stitch things, and I decided to include it to make a tablecloth. On the top of the tablecloth, there is a map of America, and there is no north, there is no south, and you can walk around that map. And I believe that it's a different way to use the stitch and the patterns, to write history, not in a non-linear way, in a more organic way, maybe. And that's it.
Interrelationship between your way of thinking about your work and the way that Christine was mentioning, even though the work is visually quite different. I'd like now to introduce Simonetta Moro. She's a visual artist, and actually the work you're seeing behind Johanna and Simonetta is one of Simonetta's beautiful pieces. Simonetta is a visual artist with a focus on painting, drawing, and mapping practices. Her work has been exhibited and published internationally in Italy, New York, in Chicago, Rome, and the UK, among others. And her research in cartographic aesthetics informs many of her artworks and her amazing book, Mapping Paradigms in Modern and Contemporary Art, Poetic Cartography, which was published by Routledge last year. Simonetta holds a PhD in Fine Arts from the University of Central Lancashire in UK, an MA in European Fine Arts from the Winchester School of Art, also in the UK, and a BFA in painting from the Academy of Fine Arts in Bologna. She was born in Italy and currently lives in New York City. I'd just like to read a small quote from her writing, which I think is relevant, of course, not only to her own work, but also to many of the aspects in this exhibition. Representation and abstraction coexist in my work, often situated at their edges. I see the map form as a synthesis of these two modes, a metaphor that allows me to expand on the politics and poetics of places and to evoke the idea of a journey. A personal history of wandering made me investigate issues of placement and displacement, as tools for traveling maps can either transport us into other worlds, or make us aware of the unseen details of our current world. So welcome, Simonetta, and please share with us your thoughts on the exhibition and on your own work.
Thank you, Karen. That was a wonderful introduction. And okay, I need to speak up.
Yes.
Juan tells me. I did prepare a few notes because I am lost without that. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me in this wonderful exhibition, which I need to find some time to really look very carefully. Thank you, Juan, as always, for all your work and your vision. I would also like to say that for me, drawing, painting, visual art practices are, for me, writing is also a creative practice. That's what I was trying to say. So I will sort of address your two main questions in a way that involves the work I do as an artist, but also as a writer, as a teacher. I'm also a teacher in a PhD program and IDSVA, Institute for Doctoral Studies in the Visual Arts. And I learn a lot from the work I do there. So for me, it's all part of one creative practice. Thinking is making and making is knowledge. That's what I deeply believe. And of course, the importance of this exhibition in a local, global sense has to do, as Johanna so nicely said, with the fact that it's very important to showcase women's work. This has been done recently more and more, but obviously there's always more to do. And not just because, you know, it's fair, but because it really shows the amazing variety of practices and media that women bring to the table in many different areas. It also reflects on New York City as a city that is so rich with people from every place in the world. And this is really what makes it great. And in a global sense, I think there's a tendency now to explore other makers, cultural producers, other traditions that are expanding ossified notions of center and periphery. So I think this show really hits on all these points. Of course, a focus on textiles is in itself a way to broaden the scope of what is traditionally considered fine art. And I have to say, I'm perhaps the only artist here who is not using textile. But, you know, I think I address some of the themes of the exhibition in other ways, which I will try to briefly address. And also, you know, I am a proud immigrant to this country, so I think we all sort of, you know, coalesce in this place where the fabric is considered in a metaphorical sense as well. So for me, the point of how my work addresses the issues that you introduced here is, I would say the first is by way of reference to the map. And it's more of a metaphorical, but also metonymical relation. As you have mentioned, I've done extensive research on the map. And the first thing that I looked when I was writing about it was, you know, the etymological meaning of map. And it's interesting that map really means cloth. That's the origin of it. The origin is always somewhat mythical. So we know that according to Quintilian, map, I'm reading here now from a definition, is a word of Punic origin that indicates a cloth. The Latin says mappa, which means napkin, tablecloth. There's a Talmudic word also, menapa, which would be shortened as mappa, which means a fluttering banner, streaming cloth. So, and the early maps were in fact made of fabric, and they were often part of a tablecloth. In the Roman Lower Empire, maps were the libri lintei, or the linen scrolls, on which edicts and other official documents were written and preserved. So there is already this double nature of the map, which for me is very interesting. One related to the painterly and graphic world, including writing, and the other related to the domestic world, in the sense of a territory within a boundary. So in the work more precisely, especially the ones I'm showing here, there's a connection, a level of representation, the map, and also on the material level, because mylar, which I use in most of my works, alludes to a veil, a screen, something very, very fragile. One artist in the show said, "Oh, I thought they were on silk." So there's this silky quality, and also of skin. And there is a play, particularly with that work over there, with this idea of a fingerprint. And in fact, that's how I began the horizontal work, which we may see later. You know, starting with a fingerprint and then working around that. I don't want to take more time, but I'm also fascinated by, and here I was glad to hear Christine mentioning biology and science. I'm not a scientist, but I'm very fascinated by what is being called the fabric of space-time, which for me is a figure of fascination more than, you know, shouldn't be understood in a technical sense. But for example, in both these pieces, there is a sense of to sort of follow, you know, not just the way objects are in place, but how they work within time. This goes back to an observation that Einstein already made about curved space and how that affects the perception of movement. And an interesting thing is also about this distinction between a smooth four-dimensional fabric, which is the space-time, versus something more striated. And I'm using two terms that have been then discussed by famous French philosophers, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, where, you know, both elements will constitute what we call a space. And, you know, if we look at this piece, for example, this work is interesting for me because it began as a frottage. So it's like a rubbing. There are two layers to this piece. I don't know if you can see it. And the top layer is a rubbing that I made on a floor of an office building where I was working with a program called LMCC that allocates artists in temporary spaces. And this goes back to many years ago. So this work was finished in 2021, but it really started, I would say, a decade earlier. So there's an element already of duration and also discontinuity, if you want, because the bottom layer is more recent and the top one is more previous experience I had. So for me, the fingerprint of the ground becomes a metaphor for the globe, on which images of floating circular zones allude to another spatial planetary dimension. But if you look at the details, then you realize they are actually details of different cities where I have lived. And then there is this big circle, which is called Utopia. And it is an idea, a utopia, as the idea suggests, but also it's a real place in Australia that I had fun mapping through Google Earth. The other work, which you can maybe see.
Is it possible to show the, Alejandro, is it possible to show the other work, either in the PowerPoint or turning around the camera?
Oh, beautiful. Oh, that's great.
Beautiful, thank you.
This is called Ticklish Zones Digital Map 2. This is number 2 of a series I'm making. The horizon. And so in this work, I was beginning by magnifying one of my fingerprints, then replicating it with inks, and then superimposing images that are coming from various, I would say, iconographic influences that I have. They come from films I've seen or other images that I found that have a particular meaning for me. So again, the map here is referenced by the sort of map-like high vantage point view. But also this idea that, you know, there is a difference in scale between the infinitely small, like a fingerprint, and what can be expanded to a more cosmic level, let's say. And then to quickly address the question of migration of people, ideas, and artwork. This is present, I think, in my work, or maybe other works that are not shown here more clearly. But also in the book that I just published, where there is a quote I would like to read. Before geography could be thought of as the measurement of the land. That is, as a geometry. It was first of all the record of the primordial displacement and movement across the land. And before cartography could be thought of as the graphic translation of land measurement, it was first of all an act of mapping, which involves movement in space and across places. And I pay particular attention to artists, contemporary artists in the book, who have this element of migration, both in their history and also in the work. So I could name Boukra Khalili. She's an artist from Morocco, but now working mostly in Paris and Berlin. Joyce Kozlov, who for many years has worked with maps and textiles also in her work. Or Julie Meretu, whose cartographic work is, for me, the beginning of an analysis that involves the idea of a cartoaesthetic as a mode of making, and who addresses oftentimes particular places and cities that have been the theater of wars, such as a recent series called Damascus and Babylon. And then I also talk about Nancy Graves, an artist who I think is still underappreciated, but absolutely wonderful, whose cartographic paintings are one of the earliest responses to contemporary achievements in the space program, as her series from the 1970s testifies, inspired by images from Mars taken by the Mariner 4 spacecraft. So these are just a few examples of artists, and especially women artists, that I discuss in the book, and I think I should end it here.
Well, thank you so much, Simonetta. I think I have to say you're not the
It's
only
strange
artist.
to address two audiences.
Yeah, I have to say it's not only you're not the only artist in the exhibit that isn't using textiles. There, some of them are downstairs, are video artists, so there are I think different ways of understanding the kind of the elusive aspect, we could say, of textile and the metaphorical aspects. So we tried to kind of open up those interrelations, not to take the cloth so only literally, but in this broader sense. And I thought it was fascinating the way your etymology of the word map. I didn't realize it had that close interrelationship with cloth, actually. So I think so many of the things you talked about, and also the artists you mentioned who work with these transcultural aspects and the political implications also of those transcultural aspects, both in terms of their use of medium and in terms of their use of references, really highlight how we need to open up our ways of thinking about all of these aspects, and how through these dialogues that are created within each of your works and between them, which is something we hope will happen also through this exhibition, we can really begin to try and imagine, as Johanna mentioned, in spite of all the problems that are currently present in our context in the world, we can continue to try and imagine waves of kind of weaving together aspects which might seem very difficult to bring together, and that may allow us to create or produce other ways of relating, and other types of power relations, and other ways of thinking about both human relations with nature, relations with other species, and begin to try and hopefully model some other possibilities. So at this point, I'd like to see if either of our three speakers want to make some other comments in relation to the work of their colleagues. and also open up to the audience if someone wants to ask a question, make another comment.
I just want to say that, I mean, it's so interesting that we are all of the artists are so focused on the connectivity that the textile brings forth, right? It's this immediate, both tactile and intellectual way of joining things that may appear disparate, but this allows us to kind of form these knots and nodes. I love the idea of, I mean, I think the universe is a textile space-time, but I thought that was interesting point too. And cooking, textile,
Yeah.
right?
Another question. Brenda,
Yes.
you said you work with
I can't, it's hard to moderate from Zoom, but it sounded like someone in the audience wanted to say something. So
fingerprint is material, pretty much a fabric.
Yeah.
What, did you comment on that? Not being a fabric? or not,
Well,
skin?
Can you hear me?
yes,
What I was trying to say is that it's not literally fabric, but it is in many ways. And the skin is what protects our body, and it's really our outer shell, our fabric.
Bills, it's cells,
Yes.
together.
And each of us has a very individual fingerprint. There's no one that has the same. I have to say, I came to that idea because I had to go through immigration, and many times they take your fingerprints. And I was fascinated by the image that I saw appearing. I remember the first time when I saw my fingerprint appearing on the screen, I thought, oh, it's a beautiful landscape. Yeah. And so then I thought, okay, I will reconstruct them somehow. I will recreate them and then make them big, because it's like each of us has a microcosm that contains multitudes. I mean, we've got 10 fingerprints, but really it's many more than that. So yeah, thank you, Juan. I think there's an element of fabric, although it's not maybe in a literal sense, but I was never interested in literality or literalness.
Just a metaphor.
Yeah, but I believe that the Simonetta work is close or is related with the Lilia and this mannequin. And when you were talking about your piece and the transparency, of the layers and the dialogue between both, it remembered me to the Lilia piece, because there's something close. And I believe in this exhibition, the dialogue between the pieces are quite interesting. This is a Blanca Mezcua, and when we started the piece, I realized that we are talking of similar topics and invaluable plants, and me too. They are super close, and we are different artists. I didn't know that she was working on the same way that me, and that's quite interesting, no?
Like medicinal.
Like medicinal plants, yeah.
But this is what good curation does.
Yeah, absolutely.
You see this connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I think the piece of Jodi.
Oh, yes.
The girl on the swing. There is an interesting dialogue there, and her video is a landscape.
Yeah.
Also taken with a drone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a landscape that is seen as a map.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting dialogue.
Especially with your piece, and both pieces are vertical,
Yes.
at the same time, and need a flow,
and we should mention Shiva's piece as well.
Oh, yeah, it's true. At the front.
Which You
I
can
don't,
probably say
I don't
more
know if
about
the
that, but-
camera can move around and show
Oh.
some of these pieces.
Sorry,
Karen?
could
No,
you
I was saying, I don't know if the camera can move around and show people who are not in the space some of these pieces. Shiva's piece and is that possible to move the moving camera to show
in at
Shiva's?
this moment no,
No.
because
Yeah.
the place is crowded. So
Okay. All right, so everybody, I thought,
we will add, some image.
okay, wonderful. Sorry. I don't know if there are any other, sorry, Simon, that I interrupted you in your train of thought. Oh, there we are. I think you were talking about this piece. Yeah.
Yes, the way it moves and floats, it's very, I mean, formally, but also conceptually, I find to be in an interesting dialogue with my piece, but I don't want to dwell too much on myself. I think maybe taking questions
Yeah,
could be interesting.
yeah, it would be great if someone.
Is
with us-
there,
Either here or online. I don't know.
I can show you Shiva's piece in a second.
Okay.
um,
You may be able to see Shiva's piece.
yes, I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. Maybe Johanna, you can help me if there are people in the audience who have questions.
Someone want to add something, and it's about issues concerned.
Well,
Anyone have a question?
or everybody may be now eager to go and walk around and see the exhibition.
Okay.
Here, can you see? That is Shiva's.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'd really like to thank Christine, Johanna, and Simonetta for their wonderful comments and the dialogue that has the interweaving of ideas that has taken place in this, even under these complex transnational and transcultural and pandemic circumstances. And I'd like to ask if I know Juan must be exhausted, but I don't know if he wants to make some closing comment before we move forward to the next part of the inauguration, and which includes performances by Johanna Roa and by Jody Linki Chow, and allow people to move around the space and enjoy both the exhibit, both on the upper and lower levels. On the lower level, there are a series of video pieces, which also take up the theme of the exhibition, and to move out into the garden. I'm very jealous of all of you, but I'm not physically able to be there. But well, I'd really like to thank Juan for inviting me to participate in this extraordinary collaboration, and ask if he wants to say something about the re-inauguration of White Box.
I'm here seeing you. You may be seeing me with the audience. I honored that you guys are really exhibition. I thank Johanna Roa for having invited me to make the exhibition of hers that you curated, an amazing piece. And I'm happily exhausted because we've been working for 11 months to find a space in the right place in New York City. And finally, 11 months later, we managed to sign an 11-year lease with some of our collaborators I mentioned before. One of them is here, Mr. Alan Bookman.
Hi there.
And I think what's to come right now is to go to the backyard to our 1,000 square feet future environmental garden, throw 22 square feet of silver lining on the floor and see Jody perform. And after that, at 7:15 or so, Johanna Roy is gonna cook us Doña Carmen's recipes. Yeah, so we'll honor you, Karen, and thank you so very much. We'll keep this thread going. Going through Facebook live stream the performances. So you're welcome to have a scotch or one of those tequilas you have in there, right? Mezcal, natural thing. And again, thank you so much, Karen. You mean a lot to me and to our program for the next 2 years of curatorial feminist exhibitions and performances and workshops. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Wish I was there.
And in the traditional, strange tradition, we have one of our all-time collaborators, poets, Cetra, great support. And I'm inviting Anthony Hedinger to get up here and in a very, very cool way, read what you have prepared for today. This is Anthony Hedinger. One more time.
Hi, wonderful to meet you.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to suggest one thing. Each one of you, lovely grown-ups, is going to pick up the chair you're sitting on and fold it so you don't break anything, and slowly go into the back after Anthony leaves. And make a circle.
Hello.
Anthony.
Hello.
Anthony. That's just for the camera. Not for the crowd.
Okay. Come close to us. That's for the camera.
Okay.
Anthony, come over here. Center yourself.
No.
Oh, okay. So which direction do I face it?
This camera.
Am I facing the right direction?
Yes, my camera.
Okay.
There. Okay.
Tell me when you want to go. I don't need that. Do I need this? I don't think so.
Yes. It's just for the camera.
Oh, okay, for the camera.
Over there.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I hear you.
Tell me when to go.
I hear you, Anthony. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm about to read. Danny and the Loonies, who made the Billboard Hot 100 in 1958 with Rock and Roll is Here to Stay. The key lyric ran, rock and roll is here to stay, it will never die, it was meant to be that way, though I don't know why. Well, rock and roll died. What survived? This is the ballad of concept art. Concept art is here to stay, it will never die. Who can say how it got that way? Oh, you insist? I'll try. Please, please,
Shut
I'm
up.
reading here.
Take a deep breath.
Joseph Beuys spent much of the Second World War aloft for the Luftwaffe, but in '44, his plane cratered the Crimea. He was dug from the snow by nomadic Tartars who swathed him in felt and animal fat, saving his life and teaching their law. The life that they saved, he devoted to art, totally earning that shaman's hat. You believe one syllable of that. God bless you, your head is as soft as your heart is. And I've got a nice bridge to sell you for starters. But don't comb the files, don't act like a stiff. Enough perhaps is, maybes, and what ifs. Boys is a hit, so let boys be a myth. He ain't no horse, he's a hippogriff. Yes, concept art is here to stay. It will never die. believe whatever artists say, especially when they lie. Yves Klein's on his back on the beach in Nice, dreaming with two artist wannabes. Yves signs the sky, claims it as his. Okay, now we're moving on to a Paris suburb, 1960. The calm is horribly destroyed. Is that a plane, a bat, a Boyd? Some poor lost wandering asteroid? No, it's a leap into the void. Across the sky here flies Yves Klein, months before Yuri Gagarin. A picture taken by Jean Kender, the Paris art photographer, makes this a moment of art splendor, which is exactly what it was. Way down below we see hard road, not the top in the hands of Klein's judo squad. So praise conceptualism's hunk and the darkroom skills of Kender and Schunk. John Lennon in a '69 interview claimed Yoko invented concept art. This came out in Look Without Hullabaloo. Next year the Beatles began splitting apart. Look closed its eyes in '72. So did the Walrus speak the truth? Not if you ask Joseph Sossuth. But rock and roll's so yesterday, Paul's finest song, some people say. Retro's what they do today, but concept art, that's here to stay. Vito Conti lurks beneath a ramp in the Sonderben Gallery. Above there's a shuffling, tap-tapping a stamp. But Vito ain't here just to listen to feet. He's here to listen and beat his meat, while the walkers flesh out his fantasy. Vito's spanking the monkey, pulling the pud. Not like us, because he feels good, but so's to share the goings-on with gallery goers via the intercom. So that's Vito Conti in '71. He's one conceptual son of a gun, and concept art goes roaring on. In '73, Colette turns her loft on Pearl into an art environment. Crinkly, lace in egg white, just like a girl. Nobody had to ask what it meant. Took her art outdoors for the world to see. Slept in store windows in her lingerie, like, bad rhyme alert, Fiorucci. Now it's part of conceptual art history. So why is Colette such a malcontent? Say hi to Lady Gaga's creative team. But what does creative actually mean? Let's face it, the meaning these days can be loose. Look, here's an idea, don't matter whose, if we can put it to profitable use, by which I'm no way suggesting abuse. But here's a corker, The Meat Dress. A Canadian artist came up with those. Her edition of 3 had small success, but Mark Ryden's cutie pies dressed in flesh look edible in juxtapose. Then Gaga put on a meat dress which she wore to a video award show for MTV. She waltzed away with a ceremony, and the dress made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her window in Barney's almost the same. Okay, window looks somewhat Colette-ish. Artists strip mine the cult of what they do. Originality of positive fetish. Artists have to get used to being strip mined too.
So we're taking a little break and we're going to the back garden for Jody's performance.
I'm Claudia.
Yeah, Claudia,
And I
how are
just
you?
wanted to say
Lovely.
hello.
Lovely. Have you been to the backyard?
No,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, good. How's Bill?
He's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
photographs, but he didn't want to come.
Okay, yeah, I see them now.
Well, you know, his back hurts and stuff,
Oh,
so
sure.
he chooses. But we should do that interview soon, finally.
Yes, yes. This month?
Maybe.
Yes,
We're
because
leaving.
I'm leaving. Yeah, when
We're
are you
leaving
leaving?
Tuesday, and we come back the 15th.
15th. Okay, maybe after 15th.
Perfect. That's
Okay.
good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
So the talk just stopped. Yeah, I wanted to come after the talk because I'm very tired.
Have you seen, or did you see this when they were installing? But what is it?
I know.
What about like pre-pandemic? What about pre-sign? What was that about?
That's all blue chip galleries and stuffy art. It's still there around the museums.
He's getting us someplace.
Rarely a spicy gallery. There's some
Tribeca too.
Then
It's also blue chip, or sort of a mixture.
kind of a mixture because there's some nonprofit spaces over
The Postmasters.
Yep.
But they've been there a long time. Yeah.
Art in general, been there a long time.
I can remember the artist's name, video art, and the soundtrack was Die Hard. I think it was Die Hard 4. But he made a video inside, so it was commenting on Israeli situation. Or maybe it was just internal politics, maybe. So it's just him shooting domestic scenes to fit the soundtrack. Something would just be opening the door, going to the kitchen, and it would just match the soundtrack. So it was really interesting. Yeah. Really odd, wacky show.
Actually, that's a nice piece.
So what's going on now? You have music and then
Performances maybe downstairs or outside. Videos.
I think I'm gonna go take a look at the basement. Yeah. 我楼下看看。啊，那个小游。Maybe we could walk around.
And welcome. Yep. All right, I just have been given the latest news about a durational performance in the ambit of my old friend Marina Abramovich, who sort of like reinvented, because Ilya Soskic invented a lot of the artists as blah, 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 etc. in Montenegro, her teacher. And I had the pleasure to present him with William and Anastasia at White Box in one of the performance series. But they took it very well. Both Marina and Jody Ling Ki Chow. Yep. Directly from Jamaica, right? As well. That I love it. We have the Caribbean here. So this is going to be a durational piece, Jody said. So you can also get up, don't have a drink, because I don't want to work. You can go outside and come back without a drink. Yeah. So it's going to be durational, and you're welcome to walk around and come back and forth. It's about 30 minutes plus. Yep. And the title is Gypsies.
Just say the Feast of Those Gone By.
The Feast of Those Gone By. Original was some kind of from the Gypsies Picnic series by Jody. Okay. So on the trois, the feast begins. Thank you. Peace in the garden.
did the PA did his thing?
pieces of equipment.
Oh, okay.
For sure, I want a new of these ones. And
what sort is that?
It's only 4 tracks.
Yeah.
I want one that is 8. Why? Because it's cool. And the microphones are also better.
Yeah.
And the new ones also have this new. So. But.
All right, are we ready yet? Alejandro.
He just went outside. Okay, I would like
Normally.
to tell you that
This is for online. That's all.
Okay. Okay, I try because I have to do both.
Anyhow, this is Johanna M. Roa. Her work is here in the Carmen. She made this beautiful video. Table, the dress, and the rest is history because she's going to be cooking her recipe directly from Mexico. Herbs, wheats, etc. The culinary ingredients are also handled and invented after the voyage. So, let us know.
Okay, I just want to tell you that I met Doña Carmen a few years ago. Doña Carmen and her friend Mirces Amalia, they created a recipe. Doña Amalia says that one day she was worried because she hadn't money to feed her 11 children. Then she went to the forest to pick up some herbs, and she tried it because one of them could be poisonous. So she picked up some of them and she created the recipe. And one day she told to Doña Carmen how to prepare it, and they had a quite interesting conversation about the language and about the name of the recipe. Because Doña Amalia wanted to name it pizza. And Doña Carmen said, no, that's impossible. Are you crazy? You can name it like a pizza. You know, we need to use our own language. Mirces Carmen is a Nahuatl speaker. Nahuatl is the antique language of Mexico. Then she named it Huey Chopan Tlaxcali. It means the big omelette of the green time, that is the time of rain, because the herbs and green plants grew up faster, during this period. Then I made the video. In the video, we went to the forest, and we pick up the plants, and we prepared the recipe. And I believe that I'm a feminist, so I believe that it's important to climb the heritage and to spread the knowledge of women. Then a few weeks after that, I designed this piece, and it's similar that Doña Carmen is wearing, in the video. The plants that are embroidered over the dress are the plants that we use to prepare the recipe. And that's the story. Then today I'm gonna show you how to make it. But you can create it in your own way. At the end of the video, Doña Carmen is saying that she believes that in every country people have different kind of plants. Then it's just an invitation. Then I'm using some plants. I'm from Colombia, but I used to live in Mexico. In Colombia, you don't used to eat, species and that kind. I love it currently. Then I'm gonna add some species and some pumpkin seeds. This is a dandelion. This is a celery leaves. I was turning because I realized that in the United States, people threw out the leaves of the celery. And in Latin America, you used to eat it. And I have, I think the nopal, and cheese. And okay, that's it. So I'm gonna cook for you. I'm gonna try to cook the big tortilla that as possible for me, but I don't believe that it's enough to feed you, but just for try. Okay, and thanks. I make a mix before here, but I'm using the same plants here. Those are clovers from our garden.
Some of you may sneeze, so do me a favor, put a mask, or do this, like in a hospital. It's could happen because there's some spices. You can smell already.
Okay, those are sesame seeds. As you see, Doña Carmen taught me how to do it.
Can we make questions? Right? Can we make questions?
Sure.
So in this case,
Speak up, sir.
do you have any influence from Colombian dishes that you
Do you
remember?
have-
Do you have any influence
Oh,
from
of-
Colombian dishes that you remember in your
Yeah,
family maybe?
yeah, of course. Of course. I love to cook. I'm a part of my artist practices is related with my grandmother. And in the same way I'm trying to climb her knowledge. You know, she used to be a designer auto-educated. And she never taught me how to, sew. But I believe that I learned just watching her. At the first time when I tried to use a sewing machine, I was surprised because I could make it. I don't know why. I imagine that I saw her many times. Then usually my practice in general is about that. Then I have other pieces, that are about other cultures. I have a dress, for example, about the Gunadule culture. They are in the border between Colombia and Panama. But this is other dress and it's other project. Hoja de Santa.
What is that?
Hoja de Santa. Leaf. Saint leaf.
Saint's leaf.
Saint's leaf. Yeah.
And what is this lovely green here? This.
This is malva, mallow. In English is mallow. I call it. In Latin America it's malva. Here is mallow. Chile de árbol. Chile tree. I toast this morning. A little spicy, not too much. Not as a Mexican style because it's too much. But this is tasty. People sometimes ask me if Mexican is cactus, but this is no pal. This is a cactus, but it is not at all.
¿Lo hiciste muchas veces a esta receta?
Como 5 veces.
Ah, ok. Pero no tan grande.
No, this is the bigger one.
Ah, sí. ese verde.
Ah, pero,
Yo creo que va a quedar rico.
And the eggs would be normally from chickens or from any bird that flies? Oh, doña Carmen goes up to the hills.
Claro, ella consiguió lo que pudo. Podía haber sido otro tipo de huevo, huevo de avestruz, que es
Yeah.
It is not a problem.
Yeah.
You can create your own.
Snake eggs.
Exactly.
Tarantula.
With the economic crisis, you had to use whatever you have available in the house. Or
Julia. Tana.
Sí, hola. ¿Cómo? ¿Si nos conocemos?
No.
Ah, perdón, pensé que no sé que nos conocemos. Oh, está bien. Hola. ¿Cómo andás?
Bien.
Sí, creo que no te he visto antes, ¿no? O por ahí te vi, pero no me acuerdo.
¿Qué edad tiene tu hija?
13 años.
Mi hija tiene 11.
Ah, ¿está aquí?
No.
Ah, no.
La tuya tampoco.
Sí, en Nueva York,
no.
sí. No aquí.
Ah, sí, pero en Nueva York. Sí.
Sí.
No, mi hija yo antes la llevaba a las exhibiciones, pero ya es de edad, ella quiere estar con las amigas, no puedo competir, ella no quiere estar conmigo, digo, pero alguna vez vení conmigo. No, con mis amigas, porque yo entre los grandes me aburro, me
Sí,
dicen.
va a ser. Mi hija tiene 11 y ya le pasa igual, ya no quiere
¿Qué le
venir con
pasa?
nada.
Sí, exacto. Que también yo cuando era chiquita la llevé a tantas muestras. Además que yo trabajo en un museo, la traía al museo cuando yo trabajaba y por eso ella no tenía escuela. Entonces como que un poco que se rebeló contra las exhibiciones. Pero le gusta
la parte del mundo de sus padres con el que quiere romper, ¿no?
Claro. Y aparte porque yo la llevé mucho, porque como era mi trabajo y estoy en un museo, entonces y un poco que entonces ahora no quiero, pero le gusta mucho el arte, ella dibuja, pinta, le gusta mucho ir a ver películas, o sea, tiene un espíritu bastante artístico. ¿Tú eres artista? ¿Ah, sí? ¿Estás en esta exhibición? Ah, ¿y qué tipo de medio usas? ¿Y tiene un Instagram para ver? ¿Sí? A ver.
No tenéis un cargador, ¿no? Porque es que yo lo he cerrado.
Ah.
Se me está cayendo la batería. Y he puesto mi backpack con todo dentro también.
¿De verdad?
Está ahí dentro, sí.
I love your recipe, but I'm not, it's not easy to do. Today I broke
Ah, sí. Este es uno de tus dibujos. Ah, qué interesante. Es como un baño.
Es un baño, sí. Bueno, es que estoy haciendo una serie que es un poco la interpretación elaborada de los dioses. Yo soy vietnamita porque soy japonesa, ¿no? Mi madre es española. Y en la mitología japonesa, pues los dioses no son como el dios monoteístas, ¿no? Que es un bondadoso, ¿no? Y pues, como un ejemplo de los dioses japoneses representan las fuerzas de la naturaleza, a veces son buenas, a veces son malos, en cambio son buenas. Se dejan llevar por sus deseos. Como la interpretación de la morada de los dioses. Todas estas series en blanco y negro son como escenas de seres así caprichosos, que viven como
Ah, o sea que los dioses serían como las personas, como parte del ser humano, una parte del ser humano.
Solo que tienen capacidades lectoras.
¿Capacidades como? Ah, como que es más poderoso.
Sí, representan las fuerzas
seres ideales a los que los seres humanos quieren parecerse porque son tan perfectos. No me hubiese imaginado nunca que pueden ser destructivos y todo en la cultura japonesa. Oh, que se enfada una tormenta o un huracán y mata gente.
Lo peor del mundo, lo peor. La recomienda Miguel, me la recomienda Miguel, que es un tiene trabajando en Lingua, Sound Art, de Madrid, Miguel Fernández. Y me dice, oye, que hay una chica que ganó un, no sé, que tiene una Fulbright y necesita estar allí con papa, papel,
No, ofrendas y sacrificios de animales.
Digo, eso es lo peor del mundo. Yo bring that cheap IKEA and falls down, she might not have an exhibition.
Un horror. ¿Cómo podía pensar que por matar a una persona iba a
cheap IKEA and it's missing one screw underneath.
incluso en la Argentina? O sea, yo soy argentina.
I want to visit you in the hospital.
Pero después vinieron los policías.
Then he just introduced me to her and I want to hate her and she might just now we have no friendships. It's a whole interest.
Sí, yo soy artista. Mira, ahí te estoy siguiendo. Entonces cuando veas que yo te sigo, eso, ya fue. Graciela, sí, ella es argentina. ¿Y de dónde la conoces a Graciela?
Thank you.
Mario, bien, bien. ¿Y tú?
¿Y dónde están las casas?
Behind the white curtain. Out the door.
Sí, perdón, tengo que salir. Es que estoy acá, estoy...
Leaves of grass. Everything is edible. Oye, ¿tienes cargador ahí? No me funcionó. Ahora.
Yes, definitely. I would like to try.
Oh, gracias. Me encanta otra mezcla también. I'm gonna get one too. You good, Jody?
Paula, Andrés.
Amico, did you like the Mexican tortilla? Yes? Would you say it's spicy for you or is that okay? Perfect.
Not too spicy. It's good.
And were you able to see the story? The lady in the video is telling the story of this dish. Yeah? You know, flavor-wise, I think it's very worthy of a hipster restaurant.
What?
Flavor-wise, I think it's worthy of a hipster restaurant. Like, maybe you will see this next in Williamsburg or something like that.
I didn't serve drinks.
But I like the performance.
Outside? Yeah, that was cool.
Oh.
And when she dropped the fruit, was the
Sound.
The sound, was it like...
Well, so this is the first time you saw it?
The what?
Is this the first time you saw this performance?
Yes. Yeah, Judy is but it's right behind you.
You want to try? You want some? Okay.
Yeah, I stayed all the way.
Say what?
I just stayed all the way.
Yeah, well, it's Judy.
Looking at her eyes. You know, it's like a meditation.
Yeah. In a way, it was inspired by Maria Abramovic. Yeah.
But also, staying there all the time. I mean, almost everybody does. You know, but staying there all the time, watching her, you are becoming a part of the performance.
Yeah.
Because I was
just like that tape, you know, what's in her eye.
Like a still frame, you know?
So, you become part of the performance too.
Yeah.
You know?
I think I should have posed better. If I was part of the performance, I think I should have posed better, you know? Like,
Sí tienes poquita diferencia, como que
You do the math. ¿Y tú? ¿Soy Johan o soy Juan? Soy Johan. ¿Si tú haces el video? ¿Con tu esposo hace el video? ¿El video? ¿Ustedes están haciendo el video?
él está haciendo el video, pero no es mi esposo.
Vamos a grabar todo.
Sí, está todo ahora en Facebook. Está en Facebook.
¿Qué era artista?
¿Cómo?
¿Tú eras artista?
Sí. También. Estoy trabajando con el contenido de los migrantes en Europa. De los que mueren en el Mediterráneo.
De los suyos.
O sea, sí, los que cruzan el Mediterráneo y mueren en los campos de refugiados mediterráneos. Desde el 93 ha habido 55 más muertes. Pero sí, o sea, ahora hay muchos sirios, pero los sirios suben por tierra, están llegando por mar. Todos los que llegan por mar son de África y de África.
¿Y lo haces en qué material?
Por eso ya tengo código.
El echar, ¿no?
¿La programas?
Sí, yo lo vi.
Venga, un vídeo.
¿Cuánto te das?
Acá, el problema de los migrantes desde 2015. Ya hace rato. Puede ser unos 7 años. Estoy estudiando sobre todo a nivel legal. Hay un problema y es que Frontex, que es el organismo de la Unión Europea, que está financiado por el Parlamento, no está recibiendo los complaints, las quejas que se hacen por parte de los ciudadanos. No solo personas ajenas a la Unión Europea, sino yo como ciudadano de la Unión Europea, que intento activar el sistema no funciona. Que no hay forma de recibir respuestas. No funciona porque está diseñado. No, está diseñado para que a nivel burocrático se pierda el proceso.
Exacto. Sí, sí, sí.
Puedes poner, yo por ejemplo estoy haciendo soya.
Soy ya. ver bastante ilustraciones con modos de estilo manual.
La hoja de sal.
Pero bueno, España es un país que
Sí, bueno, súper.
los últimos 100 años, también mucho debido a la guerra civil, hubo mucha inmigración de salir. Entonces de España, porque el gobierno franquista y te hubiera asesinado por comunista o te hubiera perseguido y puesto en un campo de trabajo. Entonces, España hubo mucha inmigración a Latinoamérica por esta... Eran las mejores gentes que se fueron, todos los de izquierdas.
Ya tiene mucho éxito, creo que ha venido.
¿Lleváis mucho tiempo en Nueva York?
Nosotros llegamos en el 2012. No,
¿Sois pareja?
No, somos hermanos. ¿No ven la cara?
Un poco, ajá.
Los ojos, no sé.
Adiós, Laura.
No, ya no llegamos.
Un placer, sí.
Llaman en el 2012 de Colombia. Ella estaba acá por ese tiempo, yo estuve en Alemania del 2002 al 2012 y me regresé hasta el año pasado, hasta el 2020 y me fui a Corea un año y medio. Regresé en octubre y ahorita, no, la otra semana.
¿Vuelves a Colombia?
Corea.
Ah, Corea. Pero de definitivo.
No, de trabajo.
Ah, de trabajo.
Hojas sanda. Yo hago proyectos de luces. En la ciudad estamos cambiando los las a LEDs. Entonces, lo que hago es aquí en Nueva York trabajé con el puente y el cuarto le cambiamos todo eso. Lincoln Tunnel, y las llevo al centro. Las que cambian.
¿Las que cambian de color? Anda.
Año y medio he clavado. Y ahora estoy haciendo una base en Corea. La hice y ahorita regreso a terminar la otra parte.
Qué bien. ¿Te gusta?
Cuando vino mi garabateo. Ella hizo mi garabato. ¿Qué garabato me queda mal? What's going on there? No, pero de vez en cuando pinto. Porque es artes plásticas. Y después es física y solamente como alternativa. Lo disfruta uno mucho.
Me alegro. Hombre, es muy bonito, ¿no? También el ver el final, cuando todas las luces han cambiado.
Sí.
Me imagino que también es más sensible a otras luces del espacio. Sí, ¿no?
Porque es una buena
Se
combinación.
fija de cómo está, claro.
Es una buena combinación porque te permite mirar la luz y la forma de la luz es diferente. Como son espacios muy grandes, como yo soy un poco grande, entonces la propiedad de la luz la afecta de manera distinta.
Te voy a mostrar fotos. Vale.
El video, pues.
Okay. Well, I think
Entonces yo le devolví diciéndole que sí estaba.
oh, well, I can play the role.
Ya vamos empezando a hacer ya.
Diego se abuela de celosa. Diego se abuela de celosa.
Ayer me hablaba de ti.
No, pero la cuestión es que hicimos una exposición.
Pero él acaba de llegar. Llevas mucho tiempo aquí.
Sí, sí, lo que pasa es que no estuve un tiempo en Navidad.
Ah, vale, vale.
Ahora me quedé bien.
Claro, él me
cuando estuvimos en la gente que tomamos los 2 años, se recolectaron piezas de las luces viejas y con eso se montó una pieza completa representando el puente y pues en esa área proyecto todo el tiempo. Entonces se tomaron varias fotografías de diferentes espacios, trabajando con los muchachos. Ella se pinte basado en las experiencias de cuál es la relación entre el espacio con el trabajador y en la transformación que da dentro de la ciudad.
Ya que estemos por aquí, le pregunto a Johanna que me enseñe dónde va.
Entonces, ahorita estoy trabajando en Corea. Tomé áreas que no son tan comunes, porque como la gente que solamente viaja siempre toma o tiene fotos como el arco del Seúl turísticos, como el arco del Seúl o la torre del Seúl, como más a los sitios como los mercados, mercado pescado, mercado de comida, como los sitios que no son tan globalizados con la exportación de la cultura coreana, que son menos, la cultura coreana está muy romantizada dentro, pues por el K-pop y los K-dramas, entonces eso
Cuidado. Qué interesante.
¿cómo es?
Estáis en medio del foco.
¿Quieres decir palabras?
Sí, palabras. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those survivors of this 3 hours.
3 hours?
Yes. Hey, Johanna Roa, I was going to say good night.
Está parada.
Okay, for those survivors of Facebook, we're going to goodbye until the 22nd of April. During Earth Day, we'll have another set of conversations with Karen Cordero Ryman and some performances to be announced as well. So, you want to say goodbye?
Yes, thank you. I'm really happy today because I could share the Doña Carmen recipe. So I'm happy everybody eats everything as you see. We don't have anything, so it's great. Thank you to White Box too. Thank you to you, Juan. Thanks to Karen and the other artists, for having us here.
Of the Cloth, Part 1. We're going home tonight. Thank you for being with us.